Hi everyone, welcome back. I'm Dr. Arunima Sarin, and today is part 3 of our tutorial of filling out a psychology PhD application form together. Just a quick recap, we've been using the psychology PhD application form from Harvard as our template. We completed about half of the form in parts 1 and 2 that you can check out in these other videos. Today we'll do part 3. Let's get into it. So to help get us started, the first thing I'm going to do is open up my application again. I mentioned this in one of the earlier videos, but I like to bookmark the application just because it makes it really easy and quick to find it again. And open my ongoing application. We covered all the tabs starting from degree program selection up until faculty in part 1. And then in part 2, we covered all the tabs from language background all the way down to employment history. Today, we'll cover the section of psychology program supplemental form all the way down to additional materials. And there's two things. This page is kind of divided into two bits of information. The first half of the page is explaining how psychology PhD applications specifically at this university work. And they're encouraging students to either reach out to faculty or check their websites before submitting an application to ensure that the faculty are looking to take someone on. Hopefully this is something that you have done well before this point. Even as you start to think about applications, one of the earliest things you should be doing is either looking at faculty websites, or if that information is not readily accessible, then emailing the faculty to ensure that they are looking to take on a graduate student in the upcoming cycle. The next half of the page asks us to provide information about any skills we have that they think are relevant to doing well in a psychology program. And they divide it in quantitative skills, communication skills, and any other skills. If you provided information about your GRE, then this is optional. Even if you have taken the GRE and submitted those grades to the university, I would still encourage you to use these boxes and provide information about your quantitative skills, your communication skills, and any other types of skills that are relevant for doing well in a psychology program. This kind of information is already there. It's scattered throughout your application at this point, across your employment history, your CV or resume, your GRE scores. But this is, again, one other place where you can provide that information in a clear, concrete manner that ensures that the people reading your application are really clear about the quantitative and communication skills you have, because clearly it's a really important criterion for them. And so even if you have provided that information a number of times at this point, including submitting GRE scores, I would still spend time writing, responding to these questions. Similar to when I talked about writing of your research experiences, I would respond to this paragraph using lots of active verbs. So something like, I have taken classes in probability and statistics and multivariate analysis in computational modeling, which has honed my ability to analyze complex data sets. Your communication skills. If you've taken writing classes, if you've engaged in any kind of writing project, even if it's not academic. And this is where you can write about other extracurricular communication experience that we couldn't add earlier. So if you've done things like debate a lot, or maybe were part of an improv group, maybe you wrote for your school paper or your college paper, this is where you want to talk about it. Moving on, there is a tab that asks for any other skills that you think are relevant. I would try to respond to this if you can. And here's some types of skills to think about. Being able to manage multiple different projects, being able to manage your time, and being able to manage resources. If you have experience in reading lots of different types of literature, condensing it, taking some type of insight out of it, taking some kind of logical conclusion out of it, I would mention that here. If you have experience with teaching or mentoring, I would mention that here. If you are interested in clinical psychology and you have specific experiences with vulnerable populations, even if those are not the populations you want to eventually study in your PhD research, I would mention that here. So this is a really broad, general, open term, and you can use it to highlight any kind of experience that allowed you to build a skill that makes you a better scientist in general. I would address each of these tabs. I wouldn't leave them blank. All right, let's move on. All right, so the next tab is about recommendations. This page kind of outlines the basic things you need to know about letters of recommendation, the basic kind of criterion and details. So go through, and whatever application you're submitting will have a page like this. I'll highlight a few key things from this page. So the first is that in order to apply, in order for your application to be considered complete, you need to have 3 letters of recommendation, and at least one of those should be from a faculty member at the school where you did your most recent degree, unless you've been out of school for more than 5 years. You can go ahead and submit your application without your letters of recommendation, because technically how letters of recommendation work is we add a recommender's name and details, their title, their relationship to us, their email address, and then the portal, the application portal, sends them an email for them to upload their letters of recommendation. So you can go ahead and submit your application as long as you've entered the details of your recommender. The main important thing, however, is that your recommenders need to submit their letters of recommendation before the application deadline. So if the deadline is, let's say, 15th of December, you can submit your application on the 1st of December. That's okay. But they also have to submit their application before the 15th. Otherwise, even though your application is otherwise fully complete, it will not be considered complete and therefore will not be evaluated. Even after you write the details of your recommendees here, just make sure that you follow up with them and also do this early on. A couple other things to point out. So one thing to point out is this right to inspect letters of recommendation. Technically by law, you are entitled to view the letter someone's written to recommend you. The conventional thing to do is to waive your right to review your letter of recommendation. This is kind of why. So from a functional point of view, you are allowing the recommender to write a more honest review of who they think you are and how they evaluate you. The other kind of more communicative, more signaling type is that you aren't worried about what your recommender is going to write, and you have full faith in what they're going to write for you. This isn't to say what you should do. It's ultimately your decision, and you are entitled to review the letters. But I personally don't know of anyone who has chosen to access their recommendation. But it's up to you what you want to do. You do have the option to see it if you want it. So let's go ahead and actually start to fill out this application. It's telling us some important pieces of information that are valuable to bear in mind. Make sure that you have the right name, right email address, because once you send that email to the recommender, you're not going to be able to change it. And if you exclude them because something went wrong, they will not have access to upload your letter of recommendation. So just be careful, take a minute, make sure that this is done. Send these as early as you can. Don't wait till the last minute, just so they have ample time. And then maybe even follow up with them yourself. Name, where you know this person from. Title, their relationship to you. Their phone and email address. It is, again, telling us to make sure that we use the recommender's official email address, because any personal private email address will again have to be reviewed to make sure that it's authentic. And then you can choose to waive or not waive your right to review the letter and sign as, binding the contract that you do or do not want to see this information. Once you do that, you can add more people, and then we click continue. Okay, so the next tab is the statement of purpose. And I actually want to talk about the next 2 tabs in kind of parallel, in conjunction. So there is the statement of purpose, and right after that is a place for you to upload your personal statement. Now, these are just to ensure that you have the right content. Your statement of purpose is about your academic and your research journey, your research ambitions, whereas the personal statement is about your personal journey and your personal experiences and how they have shaped you to be who you are. And I would ensure that that's really the type of information you're focusing on in each of those documents. So the statement of purpose, it should describe why you want to go to grad school, what it is that you want to study there, work on there, what experiences, academic experiences you've had that have shaped your interests, how you want to pursue the questions you want to pursue, why those are important. And so really majority of that document should really, the document should essentially focus on your research journey, both where you've come from, but also highlighting what it is that you want to do in grad school and beyond. Like, what are the big questions you want to pursue, and then more concretely, some questions that you want to get started with in grad school. There's details about the document, right? That it should be 1,000 words or less. If you're using standard word settings, so Times New Roman font, size 12, then that's roughly about 2 pages. You can upload the document as a Word document or a PDF. I always recommend uploading documents as PDFs, just to ensure that you know exactly how they're going to look like on someone else's computer, and they even accidentally can't be altered. If we move on to the next tab, that's the personal statement. Now, this is a shorter document. It's only supposed to be about 500 words or less, which is again roughly a page. And this one should focus on how your personal, social, cultural experiences have shaped you, and how they're going to translate and allow you to contribute to the academic environment at the university at which you want to go to. It highlights here as well that your personal statement should complement your statement of purpose, not duplicate it. So the statement of purpose tells me about you as a scientist. Your personal statement should tell me a little bit more about you as a person, but again, in a way that allows me to appreciate the science that you want to do and how you will merge in the academic community if you're chosen. Right, let's move on to the next tab. The next tab is digital portfolio. Now, this is an optional tab. Applicants often have additional materials, a private website or audio or visual content, maybe written content, any type of additional materials that enhance their application. And this is the university giving those applicants an opportunity to share that information. If you have information that you think that is going to be cool and relevant to your application, I would add it. It provides the admissions committee with a richer understanding of who you are, and the more pieces of information you can give them to flourish to flourish that representation of who you are, I think the better. Once you upload, it's going to take some time depending on how big your file is. Once that's done, your file is going to be processed, and then once all of that is done, so you've uploaded and it's been processed, you should be able to see that information in your portfolio. If you have a website that you want them to see, maybe your private website, use the actual full URL and not any shortened version of it. That's it. Really simple, right? Let's move on. The last tab that we will cover today is additional materials. It's an optional tab, and it's saying occasionally you might have something else, some other type of material that you think is relevant for the admissions committee to know about and you want them to consider it. You can upload that document here as a Word or a PDF document. If you have any audio files, video files, any kind of digital document, then they recommend or a website, they recommend uploading that in the digital portfolio. But if there's some other kind of document that you think you want to share with the committee, then you can upload that here. So you can choose your file, click continue, and then that's it. All right, so that brings us to the end of part 3 of this tutorial of filling out a psychology PhD application form together. We're going to pick up the last and final part of filling out this application form in part 4, so stay tuned. In the meantime, like this video, share it with any others who you think might find it useful, and check out my website, subscribe for more content, and see you later.